Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, we're starting a new chapter, chapter 10 of the book of Revelation, and we'll be making some comments about it. But I first want to read a few verses as we get ready to go into this book. As we've been going through the book of Revelation, we have up to this point read every verse and trying to simplify the contents of this book. I know over the years as I've read the book of Revelation, heard it taught, and as I studied it and have taught it myself, it somewhat seems complicated. It seems difficult to understand. And it is definitely a book that sometimes is a book that we can say, wow, what in the world is that about? When did that happen? And for sure, I've done that myself over the years. So let's start in chapter 10. And interesting, we're going to be reading about what's going to take place in the middle of the tribulation. As we look at 10, it also will be explaining some of the details of what took place in the first 3.5 years. So I'm convinced chapter 10 and 11 basically are connected to the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. Now, I want to point that out because what we'll see in chapter 11, for instance, but leave out the court, that's the outside of the temple, don't measure it. It's been given to the Gentiles. They'll tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. That's 3.5 years. And then in verse 3, I'll give power to my two witnesses, which we believe take place at the very beginning of the tribulation. And he said they will prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. And again, if you put those number of days into years, that's 3.5 years. And then as you look down in chapter 12, verse 6, the woman fled to the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. And we believe that's actually talking about what's going to take place at the end of the first 3.5 years, going into the last 3.5 years. And then in chapter 12, again, but the woman was given wings of an eagle that she might fly into the wilderness to her place where she's nourished for a time and half a time. A time is a year. A times is 2 years. That's so times. That's 3 years. And half a time, that's half a year. That's 3.5 years. And from the presence of the serpent. And then in chapter 13, again, this he was given a mouth speaking great things, and blasphemies. It was given authority to continue for 42 months, 3.5 years. So John mentions several times here, as you notice, this 3.5 year period of time, which is half of the tribulation, which is, and you put the first 3.5, the 3.5, as we notice in these verses, it's a 7-year period of tribulation. And some of these 3.5 years refer to the first half, some of them refer to the second half, as again, 7 years total divided into two parts. Jesus even divided it into two parts. When you see the abomination of desolation, then great tribulation will take place. And the first part of the tribulation would be called the tribulation. The second part of the tribulation would be called the great tribulation. And so the first part of the tribulation we begin studying when the seven seals were opened there in chapter 6. In chapter 7, there is a little bit of an interlude telling us about the 144,000 that are sealed, the Jews that are sealed in their preaching. And then you have the martyred saints under the altar in chapter 7. And then chapter 8, the 8 trumpets begin to sound. And the first 4 desolations take place in chapter 8. Then chapter 9, the 5th and the 6th trumpet sound, and that's when the army of demons is let loose from the pit and also from the east. And then now we're in chapter 10 through 11, verse 14. You have an interlude kind of explaining the things that take place and giving details behind what takes place in the first part of the tribulation. And then you have the 7th trumpet sound in chapter 11, 15, and 16. And so I hope that gives you an overview and somewhat simplifies what is taking place as we look at this book. So again, you see this wonderful, wonderful message taking place as John is revealing to us what is happening in the last times when God has the final word of judgment on the earth before he sets up his kingdom. So God bless you. I trust that you're encouraged as you read chapter 10 and know that God is in control. God bless, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.